Hello there and welcome to Nowhere to Hide. I'm Brian Hyde. A few weeks ago, we talked about a little transfer of money between Idaho State University and Bannock County. This was money that was set aside for building a forensic laboratory where autopsies could be conducted and where students could learn how to be, pathologists. But it didn't happen. Well, the money transfer happened, but it wasn't supposed to happen. And now it appears that there is some accountability finally on the horizon. And some people are crying foul, like, "Hey, it's just taxpayer money. It's between state entities. What's the big deal?" I'll explain what the big deal is coming up in just a moment.
All reporters are biased, the Idaho Press Club are biased, all media, newspaper, radio.
To be completely blunt here, Brian, and there are plans to expand
indoctrination.
That's right.
Well, Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot. That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm like crying.
Nobody wants to see
Dark money is influencing policy in our state.
Well, that's not.
Once again, welcome to Nowhere to Hide. So a few weeks ago, we talked about this issue where the legislature appropriated nearly $900,000 for Idaho State University. And after studies and after looking into the possibility of building a forensic laboratory, it was decided that, it's just not going to work. And that money should have gone back to the taxpayers. But instead, Idaho State University entered into an agreement with Bannock County and transferred the money to them. And this is where the story starts to get intriguing because that was not supposed to happen. And finally, mainstream media is beginning to take a little bit closer look, and this is what they have to say about it. This is from East Idaho News, but they're actually sharing a story that was first published in the Idaho Capital Sun. But let's talk a little bit about what happened here. And the story begins on November 26th. State Senator Glenita Zeiderveld of Twin Falls sent out a press release alleging the university misappropriated $853,700 in state funds intended for the now defunct East Idaho Forensic Pathology Center project. Now, the East Idaho Forensic Pathology Center was a proposed project supposed to be built on the Idaho State University campus and then operated by Bannock County. The legislature in 2022, through House Bill 776, appropriated $900,000 to the university for initial operating costs. And the university said establishing the center was a step in addressing a critical regional need and offering educational opportunities for university students. Okay, fine and dandy. Yeah, it's a growing university, so we could see why they might need that. However, let's take a little bit closer look. On October 29th of this year, after this was pointed out, Bannock County Commissioner John Crowder brought to the attention of the Board of Commissioners the language of the bill, which says, quote, "Legislative appropriations shall not be transferred from one fund to another fund unless expressly approved by the legislature," end quote. So there's the rub right there. In April of 2023, ISU did transfer $853,700 to Bannock County, which were the remaining funds after consultation costs. Now, the funds were placed in an account specific to expenses related to setting up the forensic center, according to Bannock County spokesperson Emma Iannacone. Since that transfer, the county has used $168,882 toward autopsy-related tests, equipment, recruitment efforts, and consulting fees, leaving a total of $684,817 in the fund. Now, the problem here is that money wasn't supposed to go. It's been pointed out that it wasn't supposed to go, so what do they do about it now? Well, this is the quandary that is being faced by Bannock County commissioners. And so here's where they have to decide what is going to happen next. Does that money just be returned to the state? It should be, but will it be? Well, both ISU and Bannock County worked in good faith. $46,300 of the original appropriation was expended on design consultation and cost estimates. That's according to Emily Franson, ISU spokesperson. That's what she told the Idaho Capital Sun. But unfortunately, Bannock County did not move forward with building a facility, and the project ultimately was not completed on ISU's campus. Now, Franson said the university takes responsibility for not maintaining stricter oversight and accountability regarding the legislative appropriation, and they're taking steps to address the situation. So they've been caught. Now they're trying to walk it back. Okay, well, obviously we should do that a little bit different. Franson said Idaho State University has submitted a mutual termination agreement of the MOU to Bannock County asking for the return of the funds. And Franson said the university then plans to return the funds to the state per the guidelines of the appropriation. Now, ISU President Robert Wagner said the university respects and deeply appreciates the trust placed on it to steward public funds responsibly. But this is kind of the kicker, isn't it? Now that we've been caught, we really do place great emphasis on using these funds wisely. But until they were caught, until someone pointed it out, it was just kind of, well, this is how business is conducted. Do you see the problem? Senator Glenita Zweiderveld says, here's her response to the article. She says, what we allow will continue. And this is worth considering. She sums it up in a pretty direct way. She says, Idaho State University and Bannock County have betrayed Idahoans' trust by misusing $853,700 in state funds intended for the East Idaho Forensic Pathology Center. Now, she says, as she stated in her initial press release, when the project was found to be unfeasible, ISU was required to return those unspent funds to the state. Instead, ISU transferred the money to Bannock County, which then used it on expenses unrelated to the non-existent forensic center and outside the intent of the appropriation. Today, only $638,318 remains in the account. Now, when you look at the millions and millions of dollars in the state budget, that may not seem like much, but it's a principle that's at stake here. Glenita says ISU has announced the plans to get the money back from the county and return the remaining funds to the state, but more is needed. And here's why. She says these funds were appropriated for a specific purpose and were misused. Every dollar spent improperly beyond what remains must also be repaid in full. Taxpayer dollars are sacred, and Idahoans deserve to know that their money is being handled responsibly and legally. Anything less than the full return of the $853,700 is unacceptable. She's drawn a pretty hard line there, but can you blame her? The law is what it is, and these are public funds, and so they need to be handled with some respect. Now, she goes on to say this isn't just about restitution. There's also a factor of accountability. If laws were broken or if procedures were deliberately ignored, the people who were responsible must face consequences. And listen to her reasoning here. This is not because this is a political witch hunt. It's not. It's because Idahoans work hard for their money, and they should be able to trust that it's being used wisely and for its intended purpose. So that trust has been violated, and we can't let this go unanswered. Accountability is essential to restoring faith in government. Now, I don't know about you. You may have some differing feelings about, what does it take to have faith in government? And frankly, I want government as small as possible. I want it as unobtrusive as possible. But whatever I do have in place, and I trust it's there to protect my rights, to see to it that our society functions smoothly. We have ways to suss out our disagreements and so forth. I don't want it micromanaging me in every way, but the parts that are there and that are serving their proper role need to be accountable so that they can be trusted to do the right thing. Now, here's what Glenita says. She says, I urge the Attorney General to investigate this matter thoroughly to uncover how this happened and who is responsible. I also call on the legislature to audit all one-time appropriations to ensure compliance with state laws and to prevent future misuse. Idahoans deserve full transparency, and immediate action is needed to ensure that this doesn't happen again. Now, I know there are those who would say, well, this is just a politically motivated witch hunt, but this is about making sure that government works for you and doesn't just treat you like a giant wallet that it can, pluck money from whenever it chooses. Now, the Idaho Freedom Foundation was very instrumental in helping to bring this out and to publicize this. They were one of the ones who helped break this story, and it's because part of their job is to be a watchdog to government, and that means fiscal responsibility and accountability on the part of those who are handling taxpayer funds. Idaho Freedom Foundation President Ron Nate says the people of Idaho have a right to expect more from their leaders and institutions. Returning only part of the money while ignoring the broader issue, he says, is unacceptable. We must demand full restitution, accountability, and meaningful reforms to protect taxpayer dollars. I will keep pushing for transparency and solutions that rebuild public trust in the management of taxpayer funds. That's not calling for more government, by the way. That is just calling for more responsibility and more accountability in government. So Ron says, well, this is a victory. It's not nearly enough. Bannock County falsely billed for services that were never provided, and despite ISU claiming they worked alongside Bannock County in good faith, we're not so easily convinced. He says that's why we at the Idaho Freedom Foundation are still calling for an official investigation, now more than ever, to discover how this corruption happened in the first place and to demand accountability for those involved. If laws were broken, Idaho taxpayers deserve to see justice upheld. Does that seem extreme to you? I'm just thinking there are a few people out there who would think that's such an extreme thing, but these are the same people who would think nothing of spending millions upon millions of dollars for various programs that do everything short of reading your child a story before tucking them into bed. Look, you have a watchdog in the Idaho Freedom Foundation that is looking out for good government. And it's not a matter of you have to vote for this party, you have to vote for that party. Their scorecard is very simple to understand, and it's a little bit of a thorn in the side for some of the legislators who, well, you can look at what they've done, you can look at how they voted, and see exactly where they stand on issues pertaining to your freedom and fiscal responsibility. It's a good thing. They need to be accountable. They need to be responsible. And by the way, if you want to learn more about being a responsible citizen, a citizen lobbyist, if you will, we'll have some details coming up on their Legislature 101 class, which will be offered early next month before the legislature goes into session. I'm Brian Hyde, and this is Nowhere to Hide.
All reporters are biased. The Idaho Press Club are biased. All media, newspaper, radio.
To be completely blunt here, Brian, and there are plans to expand
indoctrination.
That's right.
Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot.
That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm like crying.
Nobody wants to see
Dark money is influencing